Hello, it's Karen here with take 2 of my video. My camera decided to cut out after 3 minutes last time, so I'd waffled my way along, sorted out the whole card, and unfortunately only about 3 minutes of it had taped. So I may well do a little bit of this standing up so that I can keep my eye on the camera as I'm doing the recording. So for the LGC projects, I use the Two Wild Rose bundle. So that is a stamp set and coordinating die set. But I chose to team it with the Noble Peacock papers and foils and ribbon because I thought they were absolutely beautiful colours, and I thought the Wild Rose would look really stunning with it. So let me get started. I'll move some of these pieces out of the way. So I'm going with Pretty Peacock, one of our new in colours, because I haven't had a chance to use it an awful lot and I really like it. So this is the card that we're making, and I'm just going to pop that up out of the way of the camera but close by so that I've got it for a point of reference. So the first thing we need is we need to take a piece of A4 cardstock and we need to cut ourselves a card base from that. So what I'm going to do, I've got my old Stampin' Up trimmer here. Hopefully there's a new one on the horizon soon. That's quite exciting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half at 10.5 centimetres and put that piece to one side, and then I'm going to score it at 10.5 centimetres is also equivalent to 4 1/8 of an inch if you prefer imperial measurements. And to score it, I need to score it at 14.9 centimetres or 5 7/8 of an inch, and that's what will give me my lovely Pretty Peacock card base. So I'll just keep the trimmer here at the moment because I need to trim down some of our cardstock. So we've got this beautiful foil cardstock, and a bit of a tip when you're cutting foil cardstock or glitter cardstock, cut it upside down. It's a little bit kinder on your blades. So I want to cut this so it covers my full card front. So I'm going to cut it at 10.5 centimetres wide, or that's 4 1/8 of an inch. So that's a spare piece for another project. And then I also need to cut it at 14.9 centimetres, or that's 5 7/8 of an inch again. So there's just a little slither of cardstock that we're taking off there. So that's going to make our card front. So I'll just pop that to one side, and I think I've finished with the trimmer now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the various elements that I need together, and then finally we'll put the card together. So we need some punched out leaves. So what I've done here is I've taken the leaf punch and I've punched out from some of the lovely Pretty Peacock foil a couple of the leaves. Okay, and what I like to do is I actually like to take off that one, and I just tend to use them 2 at a time. So I'll put those to one side because there's some embellishments that we're going to need. Some other embellishments that we're going to need are some rhinestones. Now what I've done in your packs is that we gave you half a sheet of standard rhinestones, but what you can do, you see, is you can use your blends pens to colour them up. So I'm just going to colour up, oh, pinged that one off, oh, pinged it off again, come back. I'm just going to colour up a selection of those with my blends pen, and then we just pop those to one side to allow them to dry off a little bit. So by purchasing the standard rhinestones or the standard pearls, and if you've got your blends pens, you can colour up anything you want. Okay, so there we've got our card base, we've got our mat, we've got some of our embellishments. So we also need a die cut. We need to use this die cut out of foil. So I'm going to take my piece of foil and I'm just going to cut off a strip of that and run that through my die cutting machine. I've just got that over to the side of the camera, but put that in whatever sandwich your die cut machine likes. I'm still using my my old Big Shot here, so I'm just going to run that through. Just doing that off camera, but I am still here, hoping that I don't make the camera wobble around too much by taking it off camera. Okay, now this this die cuts absolutely beautifully. I'm just going to get rid of these bits in the bin. Okay, so I'll poke those little bits out of my die another time. Actually, I've got my die brush handy. See, there we go. That's got rid of all those bits. Super easy. And we can do the same with the die cut itself as well. And all bar a couple of tiny little pieces, that's everything out of there. So I'll pop that to one side. So that's another part of our card made. Just scoop these little bits off. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take the sentiment panel. So I'd already die cut these for you at the event, but obviously if you have the dies at home or another matching die set, then you can do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Blessed sentiment. I'm going to put that sort of slightly over to one side. And then I'm also going to use the To Know You from that set as well. And fingers crossed, I'm getting this all reasonably straight because it's a bit of a funny angle to be working at. So I've put that over slightly to one side because we're going to be putting our roses around there. Okay, so the next thing for the roses, I'm actually going to bring in the Stamparatus. And the reason I decided to bring in the Stamparatus was because at class or at the event, there would be a lot of you all wanting to do this. So it would make it a lot easier to do it this way. The other reason I did it was to show you a bit of a technique, because sometimes it's easier to do plain die cuts for your project and stamp them afterwards, rather than stamp them and then have to try and line up the die and keep it straight as you go through your die cutting machine. So it's just a little trick I wanted to show you. So what I've done here is I've cut myself a template, if you like, and then the blank die cut is going to register in that space. Okay, so that just pops in that space, and that registers beautifully in there. So on this side I've got my outline stamped image, so I'm just going to ink that up with some pretty peacock ink, and I'm going to press down on my Stamparatus, and there we go. Oh, missed a little bit, but that's not a problem because we've got our Stamparatus. We can go back in again without any fear of double stamping or making a mess. That's beautiful now. Got a lovely crisp image. So I need to do 2 of those, so I will register both of them in. Now for this particular die, I tend to look for this sort of little knobbly bit and then this smoother bit here, and that's what I always look for when I'm lining things up. So I'm going to stamp the second rose, outline image only at the moment. So I'm going to stamp that on our die cut. Oh, missed a bit this time. Let's go back in and try that again. No, must have completely missed that one. Okay, so I'm back with another die cut piece that I will now register. Make sure that card holder is tucked back in the corner because that can create a problem if it isn't. Ink up my stamp again, and hopefully this time we'll get a nice good image. There we go. Lovely. So I'm now going to just wipe off the excess ink from my Stamparatus. You could use your stamping chamois, but I haven't got it handy, but I did have my microfiber cloth. So I've now turned around the stamp and I've got this second layer of stamp lined up in just the right place. So I'm going to put my die cuts back in. Apologies for that bit of extra stamp in there, that's making life a little bit confusing, but trust me, it'll all work out. So I'm now going to stamp my second layer, but this would be far too dark if I stamped it first generation. So I'm going to stamp it down first onto a piece of scrap paper and then onto my die cut. And there we go, we have a beautifully stamped flower. And now on to our next one, so we'll register that back in the holding place. Ink up our second layer stamp, piece of scrap paper, press down, remove the scrap paper, double check everything's where it should be, back in again, and there we go, our second perfectly stamped flower. So as you can see, everything's perfectly lined up. So that's a little tip for you. Very, very helpful, especially if you're doing multiples of things. So I'm just going to pop the Stamparatus out of the way now. So I think that's all of my stamping done. So now it's a case of putting our card together. So I'm going to need an insert for the inside. So you would cut this from your Whisper White cardstock. Obviously on the day I supplied you with some pre-cut pieces. And this is also cut at 10 by 14.4. So that's 1/2 centimetre shorter and narrower, or 1/4 of an inch shorter and narrower, so that will give you a nice little border around your insert piece. Now of course you can stamp on your insert pieces and your envelopes if you wish to do so. It's a bit of a warm day today and I think the glue's drying up. So let me pop that on there. I like to use liquid glue because it gives me a little bit of wiggle room to make sure I've got everything lined up straight. I'm also going to use liquid glue on the back of my beautiful foiled designer series paper. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to stand my card up so that I can line it up properly. And then once I'm happy it's lined up properly, then I will press it down. And sometimes I even turn it over and I might grab my bone folder to make sure everything is really well stuck down. Okay, so the next thing we need to stick down our foil piece. Now I'm just going to hopefully put some little dollops of liquid glue on here. You could use fine glue, fine tip glue. You could use some double-sided adhesive sheets if you have those, and run those through your machine with your die all at the same time. I'm going to place this bottom right. I'm just going to hold that there for a few seconds so that it just grabs a little bit. Just notice the state of my fingernails. I look like I've been digging in the garden. It's just ink. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sentiment and I'm going to pop that up on some dimensionals, and then I'm going to layer that over that lovely foil die cut. So I want lots of the foil to show, and again I'm going to put that sentiment over to the right hand side a bit. So the next thing we're going to add is we're going to add our flowers. I'm going to put 2 dimensionals on each flower, but I'm going to lay them towards the middle of the flowers so that we can tuck things underneath. So the first flower I'm going to pop down there, and the second flower I am going to pop up round there. So now we need a bow, don't we? So let's make a bow out of this beautiful ribbon. So the way I like to tie bows is I make bunny ears, then I tie the bunny ears in a knot like this. Then I hold the knot and then pull the loops and then tighten it up, and then pull the loops and then tighten it up until it's at the size that I want it to be. And then I will trim it down so that it's the right size to pop on my project. And I always find that mini glue dots are just about the best thing for sticking bows down. So I've just got some of those handy here. So I've got a mini glue dot just on there, and I'm going to pop that down. So we've got our leaves as well. So I'm going to use mini glue dots for the leaves. See if I've just about got enough left. So there's the 2 sets of 2, and I've got the 2 individual leaves on their own. So I'm going to pull that off, then I'm going to tuck that one under there so we can't see the cut edge. I'm going to tuck this one under there, and then I think the 2 individual ones, I'm going to pop those, one there and one there. And then for our final touch, we'll just pop on our beautifully individual coloured gems. So I'll just pop one there, pop that bigger one there, one there, and then I'm going to pop a couple of little ones here and there and here and there. There we go. And there you go. So there's your video for my To a Wild Rose peacock foil card. Thank you.